All right, so that was a thing. Um, we just got done watching night two of the two-night WrestleMania, and we figured, I know that the recap shows that we do typically don't do much in the way of listeners, but there's a lot to talk about. We're going to try and do it in a condensed fashion, so it's not like a 3 hour, two
Yeah,
episode
it's not
show.
it's not a 2 night 10-hour show.
Right, right, right. So, I will say that I was impressed, and maybe it's just because it was like I know we had fans last year, but it was in Tampa in an outdoor stadium, and there was like rain delays and stuff, and it was good for what they had. Um, but it still wasn't. It still didn't really feel like WrestleMania. This felt like WrestleMania, even though it was in Dallas. As much as I hate to fucking admit it, because fuck Dallas. Um, but yeah, it was. What did you think, man?
This is going to be really difficult because I'm going to have to go back and really think on all the other WrestleManias that I've ever watched, and I always hold a special place in my heart for those like early Hogan WrestleManias, but just because it's what I remember as a kid.
Right.
This is as a card and as production value and as the matches went. I'm really having a hard time thinking of any WrestleMania that's been better than this. I
Yeah.
really am. It's so good from top to bottom. Even the stuff that I thought I was going to be disappointed with, I was not disappointed with at all. you
Right.
know,
And we'll get into that because there was some stuff that was surprised. I was surprised how much I liked certain things. Um, and we'll definitely talk about that.
and we can go either if you want to just do a run through from night one into like kind of an order, or we can just like dive into like what we thought was awesome. I don't really
let's
care.
let's do a rundown, just so we give everything its due, and we can always just if it didn't really speak to us, we can just say like, I mean, we can just say, oh well, it was what it was. So but I want to talk about a little bit about every match. Again, maybe not spending more than like, oh, it was a match on the card, but I want to at
Yeah,
least
no,
mention every match just so
no,
we don't miss anything out.
no, definitely. And we kicked off night one with Usos and Nakamura and Boogs. And there's two things I really want to point out on this one that stuck out to me. And we won't, not that this is any stretch here. We won't spoil anything here as we do this, but this is a lot of foreshadowing going on. Seeing that the Usos won this. And if you
Right.
follow the whole bloodline thing and all that, then you'll understand what I mean. The other thing too, did you see the spot where Boogs gets hurt?
Yeah, and I couldn't tell if it was a work or if it was real. And I have a feeling though that it was real. Like it looked like it was just a planned spot where, he's really strong, but even he can't take on both the Usos at the same time. Um, but I don't know, man. The way that they took him out just said, there might be something legit to this.
Yeah, and I kind of went into that thinking, man, maybe he went in with some kind of injury in the first place,
Right.
and this is a way to get him off TV, if you will, for a while, because that's going to be a 6-8 month or more. The way they described it with some patella tendon, it's a bad injury.
Right. Right.
So whether it was in this match or whether it was something pre-existing, it looks like he's gone for a while, which sucks.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, Loved his work with Nakamura. But to me, this was an obvious one, and I hate to say that they're really booking Uso strong and makes sense. I mean that whole bloodline thing is being booked strongly as it is. So believe me, I've been a big Nakamura and Boogs fan, but I didn't really think that this was going to happen. So, and this the injury thing just obviously kind of drives that point home further. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I really enjoy Shin. I really enjoy Boogs, and I was hoping that they would pull it off. I knew in my heart of hearts that it wasn't going to happen, but I was really hoping that they would just for the sake of change. I've never been a big Usos fan. I like their current role, and and again they're kind of like the Rey Mysterio of tag teams to me. I appreciate what they do. They are a great tag team, but I just, and maybe it's more their off the field, so to speak, uh things that they get up to that I'm not a big fan of, and that kind of taints their image in the ring for me. Um, but I just, they're not really my cup of tea. And I love Shin and Boogs, and especially I loved that they were wearing ring gear that matched for once. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool, and I'm like, wait, they're wearing matching ring gear. They might actually put the belts on them. And then, of course, so
Although
needless to say,
I don't know if you caught this though. The funny thing was, and I noticed this really early on, and we'll talk about this as we get into this. The coloring was and the whole like them getting to the ring in the first place was pretty heavily sponsored by the new Mike's Hard Lemonade, whatever that is, which happens to be colored by yellow and orange. So we talked about
hey,
this on previous episodes with sports and stuff. So I hope to God this is not where the WWE is going.
I hope not. I don't want to see wrestlers like NASCARs. Just let's not do that, please.
So
Um,
anyway, so we get into match number two, which actually lasted quite a bit longer than I thought. But Drew over Happy Corbin. You got any thoughts on Drew over Happy?
this is kind of like what we talked about before, on our preview show. I like Drew. This is a SmackDown match to me, or a Raw match. This is not
Hmm.
a WrestleMania match, and this kind of goes to show, like, maybe we really don't need two nights of WrestleMania, because this match shouldn't have been on it, and especially when you don't have Finn Balor on your card, but you've got Happy Corbin and Drew McIntyre. And again, love Drew McIntyre, but not this wasn't it, man. This was not. And I think, and again, Happy Corbin, fantastic heel, one of the best heels on the roster, if you're asking me. But it's not WrestleMania worthy.
So I did think the spot with the sword and the ropes was cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was pretty awesome. I felt really bad for the ring crew,
Yes.
setting up for the next match, but no, that was pretty cool. But no, I'm same as you. I really had nothing for that. So let's just go on to this one, which is super surprising to me. Miz and Logan Paul over Mysterios. My goodness, I don't like Logan Paul at all.
No.
And I certainly have nothing for Dominic Mysterio. Um,
Same.
but I know you also don't like Rey Mysterio that much. I'm only in the Rey a bit because and it's funny. I like Ray's work at a WCW more than I liked Ray of anything else. Just because he was like, you know, one of the top cruiserweights.
Right.
And he really was like different every week. If he flipped on or flipping through Nitro, watching him, I was really impressed. And speaking of impressiveness, I hate to say this, but friggin' Logan Paul, what the heck?
So here's my thing with this, and I put this on Twitter, between Bad Bunny, Logan Paul, and then Johnny Knoxville, who we'll discuss later. I've been impressed. I've never been one for, oh, let's get celebrities involved in the ring. Um, but Bad Bunny was really good. Logan Paul was really good. Knoxville was good for what he did. I'm not going to say he really measures up to what Logan Paul and Bad Bunny did, but for his age and for his skill level, I was impressed.
Right.
But
Yeah, well,
Logan
we'll get into that.
Paul, I kind of, I had heard rumblings that Logan and Jake Paul were going to be a tag team, and they were coming out of WrestleMania, that Logan Paul was going to be part of the active roster, and that he was going to tag with his brother in some kind of program. And honestly, uh, I'm not against it. What I would like to see, and I mean, I guess we'll get to the ending on this one. So, um, you know, Logan Paul hit the Three Amigos, and he hit the frog splash. He did the little Eddie shimmy while he was on the turnbuckle. Like, he was a good heel,
Yeah.
and he was impressive in the ring, and he and the Miz beat the friggin' Mysterios.
Yeah.
And then the Miz inexplicably, I can't talk. The Miz becomes the biggest face in the company by turning on Logan Paul.
Exactly. It was such a to me, this was the, like the first two matches in, for the outside of the whole Boogs thing, were very slow and not a whole lot going. And that was the turning point for me in the whole WrestleMania. It was like, oh my goodness, like I'm in now. Yeah, you and I are big Miz fans. I know that. And so cool to see him just like boom, face plant with the skull crushing finale. So yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was super happy about that. So then we go on, and the next match is the women's championship match. The Raw Women's Championship match was Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. Um, and it was last year at WrestleMania when Becky made her return and unceremoniously just kicked the crap out of Bianca Belair and won the title.
Yeah,
And this year things turned out a little different.
this was excellent. Man, I was on the edge of my seat on this one. Excellent match. Man, I tell you what, Belair just so good.
Yeah,
So good, so good. And you know, look, they put in almost 20 minutes on this, and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I super ecstatic that they have Belair here getting the Raw Women's Championship, and of course, nothing against Becky Lynch.
right.
Obviously, always big Becky Lynch fan, but this was a great. This is perfect booking, in my opinion. Bianca needed this because she was booked very weakly. Um, you know, outside of what really the past year, just not great comparative to what she had been. So this was perfect, and this is a great moment for her, and just really. And I look, we're going to talk about some other great things that happened on night one. To me, dude, this might be match of the night for me. Like it was
Yeah.
that good.
I'm reserving that for another match, and more than likely it's tinted by nostalgic glasses, but I'm reserving it for another match, which we'll
Right,
talk
and
about.
that's what I mean. It's like really hard to with what we're going to talk about, but this, yeah, this was a good one. All right, so this was the really surprising part. Not that we didn't know who was coming out,
Right.
but we didn't realize that he was going to come out with, oh, I don't know, AEW gear, AW look,
Yeah.
AW
He
music.
yeah, he had like he was using his Homelander-esque outfit, which is very fitting in this situation. Because essentially to the wrestling world at large, Cody Rhodes just completed the greatest heel turn of all time. He it didn't sound like that. It didn't sound like that when you listen to the crowd in the arena. Um, at all. I mean, unless did you hear something different than I did?
Oh, I certainly didn't. That was the second largest pop of the night.
Yeah, which I see. I figured he would get a pop. I didn't know if it would be as positive as it was, or if people would be as positive as they were. Um, just based on the fact that, I mean, this is seriously one of the founding members, one of the EVPs of AEW, who, let's face it, when they started with their pay-per-views and everything, basically his gimmick was I hate Triple H and I hate WWE. Everything he did, all of his entrances, he had a sledgehammer, he smashed a throne, he did like everything was just rips on Triple H and WWE. And then he comes back to WWE. So it's something I genuinely never thought. And in wrestling, everybody always says never say never. Undertaker said it
Mhm.
and during his Hall of
Yes,
Fame
Hall of Fame
induction.
speech. Right.
but this is something that's akin to, you know, for us comic book fans, bringing Uncle Ben back from the dead. Like it's something that they said they would never ever do ever, and it's been a rule. And Uncle Ben's been dead for God, how many? Spider-Man's been around for what, 75 years plus now, 80 years, something like that. I don't know. I can't do math. Um, but like it's insane to me to see him back in the WWE and
Yeah.
against Seth Rollins of all people. You know, essentially Triple H's protege. That's who Cody Rhodes fights in his first match back.
Right, and goes over him. And the funny thing is, like, there's some great like sound bites that came out of that. I know, I'm sure you saw this one with Seth to Cody. Welcome back to the big leagues, bitch. Like,
Yeah,
it's, you know what, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that AEW is not big league, but man, Seth just knows, he knows it. He's a man. That's why he's one of the top stars. It's why he is the way he is. And for him to take the spot, to be the one to hey, you're gonna take the pinfall here to Cody Rhodes. Game on, and I just really hope there's big things coming, and that we're not going to see kind of some similar booking where here's Stardust again 3 months
right,
later.
right.
you know
So, and what's funny too is I don't know if you remember or not, but they had some Twitter beef after Cody had left too. Um,
yeah,
so that there's so many different levels to this and so many different layers. And for as much as people talk about Cody, I've seen stuff online where people are like, oh, Cody Rhodes is this, Cody Rhodes is that. Cody Rhodes was like looking at people who were doing stuff. He's like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were like people that work behind the scenes and stuff, like one of the camera people or something like that. And he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Like as he's going down to wrestle in his match and stuff like that. Like there were a lot of moments where you were like, all right, Cody, look, Cody's just a different kind of cat, man. He's just, he's gonna do his thing and let the consequences be damned. Um, and so if this is what's gonna make him happy and this is what's gonna help him contribute to wrestling still, then I'm all for it.
yeah,
So
he's back home, in my opinion. Look, this
right.
is where he grew up, and not to say that AEW wasn't going to be, or he won't be back there. But he's back home, and I think a lot of it has to do with the legacy that his dad left. And he has a good standing relationship with a lot of people of high power there. So he's going to do his thing, and he did his thing. I think he's gone in interviews and kind of said that he's basically kind of not say gone full circle, I'll paraphrase that, but kind of like went out and proved it, and now he's making multipliers of money
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So good for him. All right, so we had a couple more matches here. The next one, and then pretty big names here: Charlotte over Ronda Rousey. And this was surprising that went over 20 minutes. Just another solid match. I know you and I have gone around the horn here with Charlotte Flair. We don't have to uh, beat her up any on this, but
Yeah, I was gonna say this was the one that I just kind of checked out.
but good star power again. Just another
Yeah.
good solid match. But I do like the Belair Lynch match more than this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, there's another solid match. And then we have main event of night one. Well, we have a KO show with a special guest of Steve Austin.
Yeah, he's
And
a he's a young up and comer. He's
yeah,
kind of he's green. He's a little bit, new to the business, and he's not really a household name. So it was surprising to me that they put him on in the main event of night one, but it was good to see them give him a chance.
yeah. So what
Obviously, I'm being an idiot.
it
He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Tom, we talked about this. He's the guy that got you back into wrestling.
Yes, dude, I was so pumped with this. And dude, I would have been absolutely content with just a KO show and just whatever, just banter until it turned into a brawl. I would have been perfectly fine with that. But no, they turned into a match.
Right. And it
And for the
wasn't necessarily a short match either,
no, it
you
was almost
know?
14 minutes, and it was a no holds barred, which worked perfectly.
Right.
And it's not like it was a junk match either.
No, no. Listen, Stone Cold can still go. Now, granted, he can't go like he used to, but he still has it.
Yes, he does. He was a little robotic, don't get me wrong, but he's
Right.
57, and he has, obviously massive neck problems over the years, but um no, like, and he takes a bump on concrete.
Right. Oh, dude, I literally said that out loud. I was like, "Oh my God, he just took that on concrete." He can't, that can't feel good. Like, no, for nobody is that going to feel good, but especially this dude. It's had, all of these fusions in his neck and everything, and all the back. Dude, no, no, it hurt my neck watching him do that.
It was so good, and my goodness, talk about how good KO is on this. He
Yeah.
had to be living up every second of this, and that was just it was just so well done. And man, I was on my edge of the seat for this one. I just loved it. And this was, like, you said this earlier, nostalgia, right? I mean, this was it. Look, this is the first time Austin had a match in almost 20 years. And going back, the last time he had a match, I had just turned 21. So,
Oh
just
man, that makes us
insane.
old, doesn't it?
I know, insane to think about, right? So good. I was so pumped with this, but we'll kind of we'll kind of allude here, but that's not the last time we see old Stone Cold in WrestleMania, is it?
No, which was very surprising and a very good, uh, good. eh, I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm gonna stop right there. We're gonna move on to night two here
Yeah. So
before
night
I
two,
spoil anything else.
yeah, night two opens up with RK Bro, Randy Orton, and Matt Riddle. I'm not gonna call him Riddle, it's just stupid.
Yeah,
Over Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford, and the Alpha Academy of Chad Gable and Otis, which was a decent match. I had fun with that one. It was, a really solid match overall, and I love all those guys. But I think the story here is having Gable Steveson come in. I knew he was going to make some kind of appearance somewhere along the way. I didn't think it would be in this match, and I thought that was kind of cool. He comes in to celebrate, and Chad Gable kind of interrupts
Shorty
the
G.
celebration. Yeah, Shorty G. I forgot about that.
Fucking worst name ever.
Uh, so he comes in,
Sorry.
and Ron Breaker is pretty bad too.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true.
But Chad Gable kind of interrupts the celebration, and kind of gets a little beat down for his endeavors against Mr. Steveson. I don't know. What'd you think of this one?
It was a good match. I like okay, I like two of the three teams. Arcade Bro, I kind of like just because it makes, like I said on the preview, it makes Randy Orton miserable, I think. Um, but like it was a good match. I do enjoy the Alpha Academy. I do enjoy the Street Profits. I was kind of hoping, I knew it wouldn't happen, but I was kind of hoping the Street Profits or Alpha Academy would win. Um, but I definitely enjoyed the post match shenanigans with Gable Steveson. That made me happy. I kind of wish that we would have gotten like a little impromptu match that he could have squashed Gable though.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that they do something with him, but I also don't, even though I know he's signed, I don't know his current standing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, like, is he still in college? I mean, I don't know.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I didn't even think about that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's probably prohibited from doing anything because NCAA is archaic. So
Yeah, I kind of thought that, but okay. So
so if you look up is Gable, the first thing that pops up is Gable Steveson still in college? So
finds out he graduated like 8 years ago.
yeah. So he's all right. So as of last September, he was still in college, 21, and so yeah. So he doesn't graduate till May.
Okay. All right. So that's probably why he was at least allowed to do a spot there, but not really do much else.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
But then we get into, dude, I was super pumped about this because I really worried. You and I talked about this in the preview because in my head I was like, oh crap, Omos, or as I was calling him, Omos, was going to just be like this next powerhouse stud. And thank the Lord Bobby Lashley beat him.
Yeah. And I'll
Oh,
say this too. Like Bobby Lashley is a heel. I feel like they had him too robotic and he was too reserved, but they're letting him show some of his personality as a face. And I'm starting to really like him
yeah.
because he's super athletic. He's a huge dude. And I just, he's somebody that I want to root for.
Yeah, I loved him during his first run, back with the I'm talking like the WrestleMania. What? Gosh, that was the Umaga days. I really
Oh
loved
yeah,
him.
yeah,
I loved
yeah.
him then, but because he was like super face, but even then he was because he was a bit green.
Hmm.
But then he kind of finds his way in TNA Impact and does his thing. And he comes here, and I'm like, in my head, looking at this, like, especially the first minute of that match, I'm like, oh no, like, Omos is just going to run him over. This is just over. And then we're going to have this guy that's like undefeatable, you know. But thankfully, they let him lose. And, you know, it has to be just for the sheer fact that, like, yeah, Omos is a big guy, but like, he's an attraction.
Right.
Like, you're there to see somebody that's 7 foot tall. It's like a great Khali attraction,
Exactly. That's
you
the name that
know?
always, whenever I see him, that's the name that pops into my head.
Right. It's not like Andre the Giant. Like, Andre the Giant was
Mm-mm.
like legitimately bigger and in a time where he could legitimately probably kill somebody. Um, like, there's so many other athletic guys at right now that, you know, and no, I'm not taking anything away from Omos on this at all. I think it's, you know, he's obviously a beast, but he doesn't need to be like the guy at all or anywhere near it.
No.
Can he do squash matches with, unknown tag teams and these randoms from here and there? Of course. But I was super thrilled for Lashley to get this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. And then that leads us into, quite frankly, one of the greatest things I've ever seen on television.
I fully agree. And my Twitter handle around this time was tweeting out all kinds of things about this because this was by far, for my money, I'm not going to say it was the best match because there were actually like more wrestling matches that were better, but this was the most entertaining match that was on this card either night, and
Man,
I'll stand by that.
yeah, you're not wrong. I was this was this was so good because we had Party Boy. We had Dark Shark trying to punch the crap out of Sami Zayn over the barrier. Which if you've not seen Jackass Forever, you really need to go check out some of the Dark Shark stuff because that's just amazing.
Oh yeah.
Um, dude, I mean, and just the stuff that was brought into the ring, what the heck? Oh man, this whole thing was just fantastic. However, look, 87 had Hogan slamming Andre. 22 had Wee Man slamming Zayn.
Yes. And honestly, I'm pretty sure that Wee Man slamming Sami Zayn was more impressive.
You know what the best part was? I would almost gather that like a good part of that audience, whenever he comes from under the ring, probably thinks that's Hornswoggle.
Either they thought it was Hornswoggle or they couldn't see him
That's true too. That's a good
because it's a
point.
big ass stadium, dude, and he's a small dude.
That's
So,
that's a good point. But
and
now
I'm
I
not
kind
even
of want
trying
to.
to be a dick about that. Like, that's just legit. Like, I don't, you know, we've been in big stadiums like that, and you know how hard it is to see things from certain angles. So,
I want to see now. What are we at? WrestleMania 39 next year in LA, right?
yeah.
I want to see Wee Man Hornswoggle.
Oh my God, that would be the best.
Book it,
That would
Vince.
be up there though with do you remember when who was it? The Matadors, and they had El Torito, the little bull,
Oh
and
yeah.
they had they had him versus Hornswoggle, who was at that point part of 3MB, and he and they had it was a and step stools and coffee tables match.
I forgot about that.
It was on a pre-show. Oh my god, I was crying laughing watching that. But this match just knocked it out of the park. Just it was fun, man. It, we talk a lot, you and I, about sports entertainment versus wrestling. And I know I prefer wrestling, and there is a difference, believe it or not, you know. And people who don't watch wrestling like we do would probably not necessarily know the difference. But this was a well done sports entertainment match, and it shows how good it can be when it's done right. I wish that WWE would use this as a blueprint for how to do it.
Yeah, dude, this was so to me, it was so reminiscent of one of my favorite Royal Rumbles is the 2001. I think it's 2001. When they bring in all the ECW guys
Right.
early on, and they have like this crazy weapons match leading into like Drew Carey showing up. And I think it's so funny because you have this randomness happening. That's exactly what we had here. And dude, Pontius comes out as Party Boy. Man, like,
I was dead.
dude, I mean, outside of just not having if the music would have hit, I probably would have been like, this is the best part of WrestleMania I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. I
Um,
kept waiting for the party boy music.
yeah, it was so good. And and they just had like everything, and and the funny thing was I saw a comment on Twitter about something to be said about Johnny Knoxville with a malfunctioning mousetrap knows how to figure it out
Yes.
immediately.
Yes. Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. Not only that part was hilarious that he knew how to fix a malfunctioning mousetrap. I saw something on Twitter too. It was one of the indie wrestlers, and she posted, I love the fact it was something to the effect of, I love the fact that we saw Party Boy's taint on national TV. But the other thing that I want to mention about this match, besides how awesome everybody in it was, is how good Pat McAfee's commentary was for this match.
Yes.
As good as the in-ring action was and everything going on was, his commentary took it to another level. And that's so important. And it's such an overlooked thing with wrestling and sports entertainment. And in this match, I mean, you can definitely make a match worse with bad commentary, but this was such a good example for anyone who's aspiring to be a wrestling commentator. This was such a good example. This is what I would show someone if they were looking for the prototype for a good announce team and a good ring announcer, like to enhance the action in the ring.
Right. And look, here's the thing. I love the fact that you brought that up because to me, there's been very few commentators that have ever really drawn my interest. And look, I'm not talking about like otherworldly like Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan.
Right.
We're never going to achieve that again.
Mm-mm.
I don't think we've ever even come close. As much as I love Jr. and Jerry Lawler and
Right.
some of these others that have come around, we were not going to come close to those guys. However, um, McAfee has grown so much that to me he is far superseded like Corey Graves and some of these others. And he's obviously McAfee's obviously a known broadcaster. That's his deal, but he's so entertaining. He gets it. He understands it. He's a fan. Um, he just and we'll talk about him more later on here, but
Yes.
he's crazy, and he understood that match for what it was and so good, and man, yeah, to me, match of the night. But we had some other fun here. So we'll get into we had to me, this is the hard part too. This was followed up by a insanely, really fast paced fatal 4-way tag team match. It was Sasha Banks, Naomi over Queen's Lena, Carmella, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, and Italian Shayna Baszler. And man, I don't know about you, but for this match was only a little over 10 minutes. Dude, this was like I had a hard time paying attention because it was so fast.
I agree. And before we go any further with this one, though, I do need to ask you. So obviously, Liv Morgan was Catwoman. They said that Rhea Ripley was supposed to be Batman, but I have to agree with I can't remember who said it, but I think it was it McAfee that said that she looked like
It was either McAfee or
Donnie Darko?
Yeah, he's either McAfee or Corey Graves, and I can't remember which one
Yeah,
said it either. Yeah, they said Donnie Darko, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what she looks like.
yeah. So it was like bondage Catwoman and bondage Donnie Darko walking down to the ring, and I thought
Yeah,
that was hilarious. And not gonna lie, it was awesome.
yeah, no, I thought the same thing. And it's funny too because I obviously big fans of a lot of these wrestlers in this match. The And I kind of figured that this was going to go the Sasha Banks Naomi way. But man, I guess because I really hadn't watched a lot recently and really not really appreciated some of the work, but Zelina can wrestle. I didn't really realize that until tonight. Um, I just really hadn't, because I knew basically the talent of everyone else,
Right.
Ripley, Natalia, Baszler, you name it. But man, I was impressed. It was like just getting it. And the only thing that I really hated about this was that it was so quick paced that like I couldn't pay attention to any of it. But I think this is what we talked about on the exactly what we mentioned on our preview of this was that no one's really going to get their time to shine because there's so many people involved and it's just going to be a big car crash, which is not saying it took away from the match. It was fun to
Right.
watch, but it was like you sandwich this in between like probably one of the best things I've ever seen, and then you follow it up with what we're going to talk about next, and it's like, uh, what I just watched. Like I'm almost gonna
Right.
have to go
Right.
back
Right.
and watch it just to appreciate it because I'm sure it was
Yeah.
really really good, but it was so fast paced that I just didn't, you know. I'm
Exactly. And
probably
it gets night two to me was far superior to night one. Um, just from a match quality standpoint. Um, uh, and so I feel like this match got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, it did, and because you had so many super talented women, and it just goes to a basically under 11 minutes and just quick pace thing, and you turn it into what will next match here, Edge over AJ Styles, which was the longest match of either night, just over 24 minutes. And I don't know about you, but and granted, like we kind of figured this going into it, but this was going to be, you know, probably match of the night or match of WrestleMania. Of course, thinking about it now, we really didn't realize how much Johnny Knoxville had him on this, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but this match
Um,
started really slow
yes.
between Edge and AJ, really really slow.
Yeah, it
Um,
was slow, it was methodical, it was, I guess, really in keeping with the persona that Edge is starting to adopt.
yeah, I think this was the match they tried to tell this. Okay, I'll back up a minute. The end Edge's entrance, oof, that was good.
I
Uh,
said when I was watching that, I said it. I said, you know what? That was the coolest entrance that I have ever seen.
that was good.
And it was, and again, it's probably recency bias, but that was so cool. So for those of you who didn't watch it, and which I can't imagine any of you didn't watch but are listening to our podcast, um, but he comes up, he's sitting in a throne surrounded by fire, comes up out of the stage, and he's wearing what I can only describe as clothing that makes him look like a Lannister from Game of Thrones. Um, it was just nothing about it was bad. It was super cool, and I hope he uses it going forward.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was a great callback to the Brood.
Right.
with coming up from underneath and then with the fire. Thought that was awesome, but very slow starter. And here's the thing, I I I I think about it now, like kind of retrospectively thinking about how they did that, and I'm thinking they wanted to tell a story in the ring, which is why the way it was. And I'm not saying that this was ever going to be a Ricky Steamboat Macho Man type match, um, although they very well could have pulled that off. Uh, it was just a bit slow for me, and then it got good. Um, some close finishes, and then we have an interesting finish on this one, which I don't hate. I think this is going to be fun. Damian
Yeah.
Priest.
And I'm looking forward to, much like you, I want to see where this goes because I had seen some rumors that it's going to be three people, much like the
Hmm.
Brood was.
Edge, Damian
And
Priest, and let's bring back
Tyler Breeze.
Tyler Priest. I thought about this because I said the Brood, and I you know how the brain works.
Yeah.
Thinking about Gangrel, and apparently Bob Holly made a comment about Gangrel one time. How about you, Fat Dracula?
That's amazing. That's Gangrel's new name is Fat Dracula, which I know he would not appreciate. So I apologize if you listen to this.
So okay, so who would be the third member then? It's
I
kind
don't
of
know.
like
Honestly,
the
what it should have been is they should have brought back Fandango and Tyler Breeze, and they could have been the new Brood.
that would have been awesome.
I would have loved that. Well, I guess what would they be like the Brood cubed because the Hardys were the new Brood.
New Brood, yeah.
Yeah. So the I don't know what we would call them, but no, honestly, thinking about who they could use,
Yeah, that's a good
maybe
question.
did so I didn't watch Stand and Deliver, but did Cameron Grimes retain?
Cameron Grimes wins. So he's
Okay.
got the oh, you know who it could be? Could be Champa.
Oh, oh, God, let it be Tommaso Ciampa.
Because he basically he I'm not going to say he pulled the we didn't mention this, but the boots in the ring thing. Triple H did that earlier tonight. um but he finished off his NXT deal, so he'll be main rostering it from here on out, I assume. I don't think he's going anywhere. um I think that's a good logical third person.
Oh my God, that. See now, look, we've been both of us have. I mean, I'm assuming you've still been checked out. I've been checked out on WWE product aside from like the big pay-per-views for probably I'd say the last 6 months. I catch ups and downs on from What Culture, Simon Miller on YouTube, but I couldn't tell you the last time I actually sat down and watched Raw or SmackDown. That team up would get me to watch.
Here's the thing too. It's funny because you mentioned NXT and that just made me think of Champa because he's either going to one of two things. He's a main roster or he's done with the company. I think he's coming to main like when I say main roster, obviously Raw or SmackDown.
Right, right.
Um, and it would make a lot of sense to me to have a threesome of Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Pete Dunne, Butch on SmackDown, and then have a threesome of here we go. We have Edge and now Damian Priest, and let's bring up the quote unquote new guy. Um, Champa makes
Tommaso
sense.
Ciampa. Yeah,
I don't know.
I would love it. But let's so speaking of Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch,
There you go. See, I was trying to do the segue there, and boy, this is the quickest match of both nights at a minute 40.
and dude, it pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie. There's no way that the New Day should have been squashed like this.
No,
I feel
no.
like it was a huge disservice to them, especially when the commentators and everybody are making such a big deal out of them wearing gear to
Honor
to
Big
honor
E.
Big E,
Yeah.
and they get beat in under 2 minutes. That's ridiculous to me. I thought this was a
Yeah.
dumb match. I thought, and I get it. I guess they had to cut time, but you got to do better than
This
this.
was probably the worst part of this WrestleMania for me, was that this match was supposed to be on night one. It was cut for time to add on here, and then it turns out to be the shortest match anyway.
Right.
That tells me that they really didn't have anything planned for any of these guys in this. It's like, yeah, maybe we'll fit you in here.
Right.
Which, look, I'm not dumping on the rest of the show. I don't want to go there because it was awesome. But you're talking about some super talented people here, particularly with the New Day. And then my personal favorite in Pete Dunne, who, you know, for better or worse, at least he got exposed tonight as a complete madman, whatever he's doing. But that's why I love Pete Dunne, because he's just out there.
Right.
Um, I have nothing for Ridge Holland. I don't know who he is, just big meathead.
Right.
Sheamus, Sheamus to me is like how you are with Rey Mysterio. Like, I just don't really have time for Sheamus. The one I got, privileged enough to say that I went to the 2012 Royal Rumble, and Sheamus is the one that won it. It was like so disappointing because he
Right.
eliminated it was him and Jericho. And of course I didn't want Sheamus to win, but he did.
Right. Nobody
You
wanted
know?
Sheamus to win. Sheamus's mom didn't want Sheamus to win, though.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I digress. Let's get in some good stuff here. The next match was Pat McAfee over Austin Theory, but that's not the story of this one.
No, and I want to say before we get too far into this one, how cool must it be to be Pat McAfee?
Dude, it's like you mentioned it, call the Knoxville Zane match, and he called other matches too, obviously, throughout this 2 nights. My goodness, this guy. And it's funny that you saw the his entrance, right? And he punts that football like halfway up the
Yeah. Yeah.
halfway up AT&T Stadium.
Like, dude, he probably could still punt in the NFL if he wanted to. And so not only has he played in the NFL, he has a nationally heralded podcast or radio show, whatever you want to call it. He's a commentator for WWE, and now he's wrestled at WrestleMania. Not only did he wrestle at WrestleMania, he won over Austin Theory, who is an up and comer. Let's face it. I mean, there's no real denying that. He's an up and comer in the company. They think very highly of him. Then he gets to wrestle against Mr. McMahon himself.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just himself, because Austin Theory helped him, right? And then he loses that match. He loses to Mr. McMahon in essentially a squash that was a handicap match. And then the coolest thing of night two, besides the Knoxville match, happens.
Yeah. I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and I'm like, dude, please Stone Cold, please Stone Cold, please Stone Cold. And then glass shatters again. And I'm out of my chair because here we go. Game on. Stone Cold comes out, and man, chaos ensues. Oh, so good. I don't know about you, but come on.
Dude, look, I got chills when he took to the corners with Austin with the beers. I really want to try his American lager now, just
Yes.
because.
We're supposed to be getting here in a couple weeks, so I'm excited.
Well, shoot, you might need to bring some with you to Virginia then.
Yeah, dude, I could. Yeah, no, definitely. Dude, perfect idea. Perfect
Yeah.
idea.
So we can drink them while we're recording in person.
Yes, sir.
And so then not only does he get to hit the corners with Austin and drink some beers, but he gets a stunner from Austin and then proceeds he's laying on the ground outside the ring, dumping a beer into his mouth.
Oh, so good.
Which is one of the coolest visuals, aside from the other visual, which was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Mr. McMahon in 2022.
Yeah. Oh, man. It was so cool because it was like, and it was so funny too because he goes to try to stun Vince, and Vince like goes the wrong direction.
Yeah. It was the worst stunner
It
of all
was,
time.
but it was so good because you see Steve Austin's face. He's laughing his ass off. It was so
Yeah.
good.
It was great, dude. It was so good. It was so fun. That was awesome. And then to see Pat McAfee get his childhood dream, and quite frankly, my childhood dream of being in the middle, although it was in Dallas, so fuck Dallas. But I would love to stand in the middle of a ring in Dallas, Texas, and flip everyone off. That would be
Yeah,
fucking awesome to me.
yeah,
Um,
dude.
but see, I'd have gotten heel heat because I'd have worn a shirt that said something like "fuck Dallas," or I'd have been wearing an Eagles jersey, and I would have gotten booed and stuff thrown at me, and
Oh man, it was such a good moment. It was so funny because I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, please Stone Cold, please Stone Cold. Like I was, but it really reminded me of watching Raw in the late 90s and wanting Steve Austin to come out. Like
right,
I hadn't had that feeling in so long. And it was like so great that it was like that was just perfect. Very well done.
yeah,
And kudos to WWE for really, like, seriously, really, I mean, and all the way through, and we'll get into the main event for a little bit here. Really, all the way through the night, like they basically were like, you know what, we're just going to give it to the audience. We're finally listening, because they said pretty much exactly what they did, all the way
yeah.
through this.
No,
Um,
I agree. Honestly, the only match that I didn't, I mean, like, yeah, some of them I wasn't necessarily like thrilled that that's the person who won or the team who won, but I understood it and I was okay with it. Like there was nobody that I was like, oh, what the hell. The last match was the one that I had the strongest like disagreement with, and even that I understand because you're because of what you're trying to do,
yeah,
and so I understood why it went the way it went. Um, I have to admit, I didn't. I like joined this one in progress and happened to see like the last maybe minute and a half of the match. So I can't really say too much on it aside from the ending. But I mean, you watched it. How was the
yeah.
match overall?
You caught the pretty much the most pivotal part, obviously, but it was back and forth. It was a brawl. A lot of German suplexes, just a lot of Superman punches, a lot of hard hitting stuff. Nothing that you don't expect. It was just a good solid, as JR would call the good old slobber knocker.
Big
Um,
meaty men slapping meat.
yeah, exactly. It
Who
was
got the who got the biggest pop when they came out?
uh, Brock probably.
Yeah.
And I only say because Brock went in as a face.
Okay.
But Roman definitely has his fans now, and I think it's I don't know if it's the Paul Heyman rub or the fact that like people are finally buying his deal. I don't know that I ever will. But of course I always said that about John Cena. I never thought that I would be a John Cena, liker, if you will. But it took me it took me long enough to where he actually stopped wrestling regularly for me to actually appreciate him. Um, but I don't know if Roman may be the same way. I think my thing with him is like it's he's very robotic in his things, in his moves and whatever, but he does have a that aura about him and that history. But leading into this match, it was great because obviously Paul Heyman grabs the mic to introduce him. Brock grabbed the mic to introduce himself, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
That was
That's
really
awesome.
fun.
I'll tell you what, I do like that they're letting Brock talk more.
Yeah, yeah, and dude, I mean, he's been in the business for quite some time. You
Right.
think he'd have something on him, but no, he basically introduced himself as Paul Heyman. That was pretty funny.
That's hilarious. Honestly, I'm going to have to go back and watch that now.
Yeah, that was pretty
Um,
funny.
but yeah, I mean, that was the only one I was hoping that Brock would win.
Yeah, yeah, it's weird. I thought the same thing. I was like, man, I hope Brock Lesnar wins, which is strange because I never said that ever,
Right.
hardly. And yeah, no, but I understood it because it's like they're trying to keep this as strong as they can with the Roman Reigns bloodline storyline, whatever. The guys held the belt for almost 2 years and all this stuff, blah blah blah. But from my understanding, Brock still has a couple more pay-per-views to go under his current contract. So, um, I thought in my head, it's like, well, this could be Brock, but I get it. My only thing is though, um, kind of the Goldberg line of who's next for Reigns. Like I don't know.
Right. And that's I mean, obviously a lot of this will be hammered out, or at least the start of it will be hammered out tomorrow on Raw, um, or later tonight, depending upon when you're listening to this. But that will be interesting. And we all know it's essentially the season premiere, and I think they even call it that now. Um,
Yeah,
of Raw, and it's gonna set up storylines for the next few months leading up to SummerSlam. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. There's a lot of loose ends. Some stuff was tied up, but there's a lot of loose ends coming out of WrestleMania that we'll have to wait and see how how the storylines develop.
yeah. No,
And for the first time in a while, I can say I'm actually legitimately excited to see what ends up coming out from Raw tomorrow. Like
yeah,
I
no.
haven't been able to say those words in a long time.
I know. You and me both. It's this has been fun. They've somehow, some way, I don't know how, because the buildup was absolutely atrocious to this entire
Yeah.
event.
Oh
But
yeah.
they,
I wasn't looking forward to it,
no, man, they figured it
except for the
out.
the Knoxville and Zayn match and
Yeah,
Stone Cold and KO. That was it. Those were my two main events for me.
yeah,
And but they managed to, even though they did a shit job of the build, they managed to put on two nights of wrestling that were highly entertaining. And you know, again, I'm an AEW fan more than I am WWE at this point, but at the same time, I don't ever want WWE to do poorly, because the better that both companies are doing, the better for wrestling,
yeah,
because that
exactly.
just provides more opportunities. And you know what? At the end of the day, we saw what happened with WWE when it didn't have competition. It sucked.
Hmm.
It went into a death spiral, and it sucked for a good long time. I was still a fan. I still watched because it was professional wrestling and I wanted to watch professional wrestling. But the wrestling business as a whole is better when there are viable contenders. And now, you know, we talked about WWE getting sold. We talked about all different what if scenarios of WWE. But at the end of the day, the best thing for every wrestling fan, regardless of which company you really support, which one's your favorite, is for both companies to be doing the absolute best that they can. And hell, let's get let's get TNA to the point where we're talking about TNA on the same level as we're talking AEW and WWE. And then we'll really see the business take off again. We may even have another renaissance like we had in the 90s.
Yeah, which would be awesome. And I really hope that this, obviously, things are going to cool off, but I really hope this kind of kickstarts some people, different, some different talent. I told Danielle earlier tonight, and in my head, in my mind, Austin Theory is the next Cena, the next Roman Reigns, the next Rock. He is going to be the next multi, talented cross platform person. Um, and I think we saw a little bit of that from him tonight.
Yeah,
And the exposure that some of these other people have gotten tonight, and just the fact that like the fans were listened to, I mean, and look, the insane thing of all this is that we kind of talk about the Cody Rhodes debut like it was just another match. That's how
right,
good WrestleMania was this year.
right. Yeah,
You
it's
know,
ridiculous that's how good it was.
yeah,
That on any WrestleMania that we've had for the past few years, that was like the biggest news ever. Maybe aside from Edge versus well, no, because the Edge versus Randy Orton, that wasn't Edge's re-debut. That he debuted at the Royal Rumble.
Royal Rumble. Yep.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was definitely the biggest debut that would have happened over the past few years. And granted, we're the past few years have been tainted by COVID and all that stuff, but it's nice to have a big event WrestleMania again.
Yeah. Exactly. That was fun, and No, it's been fun, man. Let's we'll wrap this one up with a nice little bow. You got anything else on WrestleMania 38?
Yeah, just I thought it was cool to see Triple H come out to lead off the night of night two and kind of get his farewell to the crowd. That was pretty cool to me. Uh, and aside from to see Taker a couple times come out for when they and all of the Hall of Fame inductees come out was cool too. But it was overall just an enjoyable weekend of wrestling. So
Definitely.
till next time, we have been the Noise Brigade. Check us out on Twitter, on Facebook, at bigbeefyshootyboys.com and at doublewidecoffin.com.